That's a stud rock bass. There's one. That's no rock bass. A Georgia native smallmouth. Beautiful. Hello there and welcome to the channel, everyone. In this video, we're targeting two different species of black bass in Georgia for the Georgia Bass Slam. The Georgia Bass Slam is a program the Georgia DNR has to recognize anglers with the knowledge and skill to catch different species of black bass in different habitats across the state. Another reason or purpose of the Georgia Bass Slam is to stimulate interest in the conservation and management of native black bass and their habitats. Georgia has 12 native species of black bass, but for the purpose of the Georgia Bass Slam, only 10 are eligible. They really just combined largemouth bass and Florida bass into largemouth bass, and spotted bass and Alabama bass were combined into spotted bass. To achieve a slam, anglers have to catch at least 5 different species in a calendar year. 5 is the minimum number required for a slam, or you can go for all 10 species on the list. I usually go for all 10, and at this point in the year, it's December 28th, and I have 8 species. The only 2 I don't have are the smallmouth bass and the Suwannee bass. In the first part of this video, I'm actually trying to find and catch a native smallmouth bass, so we're fishing part of the Tennessee River drainage in North Georgia. The Tennessee River drainage is part of the Mississippi River Basin, which is the world's 4th largest river basin by area. And you only have 3 native species of black bass in the Mississippi River Basin: the smallmouth bass, the spotted bass, and the largemouth bass. You also have 2 non-native species: the red-eye bass, which is only native to the Coosa River drainage, and the Alabama bass, which is native to the Mobile River Basin. In most areas where you find these non-native species, you no longer have catchable populations of native smallmouth and spotted bass. Native smallmouth bass are extremely rare in Georgia now due to the illegal introduction and spread of non-native Alabama bass. I did a video back in August and talked about this in some detail, so if you'd like to see that video, I'll put a link in the description below. In the second part of the video, I target Suwannee bass the next day at the opposite end of the state below the fall line in South Georgia to complete the 2021 Georgia Bass Slam. Suwannee bass are only native to the Suwannee and Ocklawahanee River drainages in Georgia. So we have Suwannee bass in the Ocklawahanee River system and the Withlacoochee and Alapaha rivers, which are part of the Suwannee River drainage. Well, hello there and welcome to the channel, everyone. We've got another fishing video, and today we're fishing the Tennessee River drainage again in North Georgia, and I'm targeting native smallmouth bass, which are extremely rare in Georgia due to the illegal introduction and spread of non-native Alabama bass. There aren't very many streams left in the state that have smallmouth bass. This is one of them. This water that I'm standing in flows into the Tennessee River, and then from there it goes into Lake Nickajack, and from there it goes into Lake Gunnersville, and from Gunnersville it flows into Wheeler, and from Wheeler it goes into Lake Wilson, and then Pickwick. Then after Pickwick it flows into the upper end of Kentucky Lake, and it continues flowing north out of Kentucky Lake to the Ohio River, just a short distance. And on the other side of the Ohio River is southern Illinois. So this water that I'm standing in flows all the way to southern Illinois, northern Kentucky, into the Ohio River. So that is why we have smallmouth bass in this stream. It is part of the Tennessee River drainage and the larger, the greater Mississippi Basin. Well, that's not a smallmouth. It appears to be a spotted bass, but he's got some kind of funny markings. I'm not sure if that's due to the cooler water temps, or if this is a natural spotted bass smallmouth hybrid. Some of these blotches are vertically elongated. So I'm kind of thinking this is a natural hybrid. Some people do call that a mean mouth, but there's really no such thing as a mean mouth. It's just a nickname. Okay, the term mean mouth is just a nickname because hybrids are not classified or given scientific names. In biology, a species is the basic unit of classification, so all species are given scientific names. Hybrids are a cross between species, so instead of a name, biologists use a formula listing the parent species, which do have scientific names, with the multiplication sign or a lowercase x to indicate a hybrid. So there's no such thing as a hybrid species. You have species and hybrids, which are called hybrids or a cross between species. You can also have a backcross when a hybrid spawns with one of the parent species. If backcrossing takes place enough times, the backcross hybrid offspring can resemble the parent species. This makes field ID of hybrid black bass difficult, if not impossible, without genetic analysis. And this is just one reason why trying to give hybrid black bass a nickname is a bad idea. Most hybrid black bass don't have a nickname. So where did the term mean mouth come from? The nickname was first given to largemouth smallmouth bass hybrids produced in a hatchery over 40 years ago. But anglers have more recently applied the term mean mouth to smallmouth spotted bass hybrids and Alabama smallmouth bass hybrids. Okay, back to the video. I was actually on my way to the truck when I caught this hybrid. I've never fished this creek, and I didn't really like the section I was fishing, so I made the decision to go to another creek that I know has a lot more rock, and hopefully a few smallmouth. I can't believe it. Wow. The camera was rolling as it happened, folks. I thought it was another rock bass, to be honest with you. I'm gonna go to a bank where this sucker can't get away. I can't believe it. I've fished this creek so many times. I can't believe I finally caught a smallmouth. Now it is winter, and there's only so many places they can be. They've got to, there's only so many places they can be there with this colder water. I mean, if you fish for smallmouth, and if you fish for smallmouth in creeks, they go to these deeper holes. So there's only so many holes in a creek, and there's only so many places they can be. Not only that, but you have multiple fish. A lot of times you'll have an aggregation of these fish in a single hole. So your odds of catching them in the wintertime might actually be greater just for that reason. The days are shorter. But I'm actually gonna right at 15 with the old mouth closed. Hey, Georgia native smallmouth. Well, get the idea. Beautiful. I've got to have a picture of myself holding. I've got to have a picture holding the fish, so I'm gonna turn the camera off and do that real quick. For the Georgia Bass Slam, you have to have an angler portrait in addition to the image of the fish on a board. Well, that guy wasn't coming off. Just noticed my mic wasn't plugged in, so I have no idea if I got any sound on that fish catch. See ya. Beautiful fish, and extremely rare in Georgia, thanks to the illegal introduction and spread of non-native Alabama bass. But this is a great winter refuge. First of all, there's not a lot of current here. You've got some flat water. There is some current, and there's some bedrock up there and some boulders, so that when the water does come up, these fish can just get behind that rock. And I also noticed, you know, when I pulled into this pool, there were a lot of shiners, so that's always good. Didn't really see any bird activity, but if you see some kingfishers or some great blue herons, that's always real good. I like seeing that. Doesn't really have to be in the pool, but in the section you're fishing, I like to see some bird activity. That first place I stopped, there was not a single bird anywhere, and that's one reason I left that creek and came over to this one. Another thing people ask me, or that I hear a lot on the internet, is how do you find these winter refuge type places, these holes, you know, before you ever leave the house? How do you know where they are? You know, if you've never been there before, like I've never been to this one, but if you look up here, the leaves are off the trees, there's a ridge, a big bedrock ridge. And a lot of times also the creek up there makes almost a 90-degree bend. So, and that's because of this bedrock ridge that's up here. It's solid rock, so the creek obviously makes a turn, and even if you can't see the channel on the map because of foliage or trees hanging over the water, you know, a lot of times you can't see the actual creek channel, you just see trees on the Google Maps or whatever. If you see a sharp bend in the channel and you see a bedrock ridge, a lot of times there's going to be a hole of some type in that area, and because there's bedrock, you'll have bedrock channel walls a lot of the time. You'll have boulders like up there that fall off the ridge, and you know, just lots of rock in those areas. So it's always a good place to check in the winter. I wish I had more time, but the sun's going behind this ridge here. It's time for me to paddle out of here, but I'd really like to catch one more, but I'm not going to get greedy. I'm happy to get that one fish. You know, in the wintertime, the days are short, and you know, I'm not going to lie, that's a rare fish. Even if I had all day in the summer, I would be just thrilled to catch a smallmouth like that, a native Georgia smallmouth. They're so rare now. I came on up here to this point bar so you could see the rocks. You know, even though it's winter, there's a lot of dead leaves. This is all rock. Even over here, you can see, instead of silt, there's just even more coarse substrate. Mostly pebbles and gravel, but it's really, really nice. And again, that's good for the invertebrates. There's one. That's no rock bass. Yeah, it is a rock bass. Good night. Look at that sucker. Have you ever seen a... Good night. That's my hand right there. That's a stud rock bass. I'm gonna have to go see what the Georgia state record is. That sucker. I've got my scale, but I don't have any way to, I don't have a bag or anything. Let me at least put him on the measuring board. He's just over 11 inches. He's almost, his tail's kind of chewed up, but he's almost 11 and a half inches with the mouth closed. That's a stud rock bass. Okay, my battery's going low. It looks like a pound 5, a pound 06. Don't know if you can see that or not. 106. And remember what I was just saying about the invertebrates. That guy's been eating all kinds of invertebrates. My battery died there, so I wanted to get a shot of the release of this guy. Now I know you guys catch 1 pound rock bass in Tennessee, but they're kind of rare in Georgia. I'm not even sure if they have a state record for rock bass. I'll have to check. They have one for shadow bass, so I'm pretty sure they do have a rock bass record. The shadow bass record, by the way, is 10 ounces, if I'm not mistaken. This is what all was in my dry bag. The scale was in the bottom, so I've got to put all this crap back in my dry bag before I can start fishing again. And I'm fishing a Texas rigged finesse worm, by the way. It's just a green pumpkin worm with red metal flake, 1/8 ounce bullet sinker. That's not the only thing, obviously, these fish will hit. You could use a wacky rig, a small jerk bait would work. I got a fish right there. That was another rock bass. A small jerk bait, a small crankbait, maybe a small beetle spin, you know, a small, even a rooster tail, you know, or an inline spinner would probably work, you know, if you slow rolled it. Well, why is this thing hanging up so much? My hook is exposed, that's why. It usually has something to do with it. Where's a fish right there? That is another big rock bass. Jeez. That one's not as big as the last one. That last one was like a freak. This one is a nice one.